Blog Talk Radio.
We're so interested in what our guest has to say today on our CNY Urban Guy show that we just want to get right to it. First of all, I want to say good morning to my co-host. How you doing, co-host?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is a great day where I'm at. You're 50 miles west of me, and a lot more miles west of me is our guest this morning. Good morning, VisionVictory.
Good morning, Lou.
And how's the weather where you are?
Weather is great in Southern California. We always have good weather. That's why people live here. And the sun's just rising up over here. So I just fed the goats, and I'm now comfortable inside the house.
Okay, very good. Okay, here's my first question. We talked so much about gold and silver having a very valuable value. I guess what the word I'm thinking of here. They call them precious metals. What would happen if gold and metal were to lose their values?
You mean gold and metal losing their value completely?
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly how that would happen. I mean, metal itself has been worth something since the beginning of time. In fact, even rocks and pebbles, and as you know, Native Americans, they thought beads were worth more than gold. So I honestly don't see that in the equation as gold and silver or anything losing complete value. They'll always be worth something, especially because they are a finite resource. So there's not an unlimited supply of this stuff. And gold and silver are consumed, silver more so, but I do not see them losing complete value like a stock or a fiat currency. To be honest with you, I think it's impossible.
All right, thank you for answering that. But let me say this: that you referred to it as you suggest that they buy gold at $326, $329 an ounce. Now that means that it's worth close to $400 an ounce. If the currency were to lose its value, where would this value come in for gold and silver?
Well, I mean, just like anything, when they create more money, we have inflation, and so gold is simply a stable currency. It is what it is. It's been used as currency for over 5,000 years now. And if the Federal Reserve was to start creating a ton of money, even more than they are now, I think physical currencies went from 800 billion to roughly 1.7 trillion just in the last year. And that's physical currency, not talking about total currency. But what happens when you have a ton of inflation, which is the creation of money, the result is all the other goods are going to go up because you have a lot of these dollars chasing less goods, or the same amount of goods, but you have too many dollars. I believe gold is going to go through the roof, through the moon, in this next big move. I don't know when that next big move is. I'm thinking less than a year and a half away, but I'm thinking we're going to see gold well over $2,000.
Okay. We got a lot of questions to ask you this morning, but staying on this topic, if I were to buy gold, would I buy gold that I keep in my possession, or would I leave it in trust with someone else, a third party?
I think the best place for your gold is really with, buying it physically, owning it, touching it, knowing it's there. Hiding it in a safe. If you're really wealthy, I have also recommended goldmoney.com. You can hold it offshore in a Swiss vault. Switzerland has proven themselves to be a pretty safe place to store money, to store gold. But I would the only reason I would do that is if you had a lot of gold and you want to kind of diversify in case there was some kind of confiscation. But really, I see the biggest risk for people if you buy gold through ETFs like GLD or SLV, if there's going to be confiscation, which a lot of people are concerned about because there was confiscation in 1933, as most of your listeners know. If there's going to be some kind of confiscation, it will be no doubt in the ETFs. The people with SLV and GLD, these companies that claim to have, tons and tons of silver in these warehouses and that will be the easiest way for the government to get their hands on gold. Basically, they'll come out, say the Federal Reserve's broke, it's your patriotic duty, and we're freezing all these assets in SLV and GLD and these other gold ETFs. So I wouldn't recommend anybody put a dime in the New York Stock Exchange gold funds. Own it physically. If you have a lot and you're worried about diversification, put a little bit in goldmoney.com. It's an offshore account, but otherwise you should own your gold physical.
Now, when I own it physically, where do I store it? So you're talking about a safe? Is it safe in a safe?
Well, I think you should spend the money. I mean, if you're going to spend $5,000-$10,000 on some gold, you should buy a really good safe. People should spend $600-$700 on a really nice safe, or more if you have it. And you should also hide gold. I can't tell you any good hiding spots because I've used them all. But you should consider hiding it. I've often joked around with people. If you know how to drywall it in.
Whoa. Okay, so you need some gold here to go out and negotiate something to buy food, for instance. You have to make a hole in the wall to get to the gold that you have a hole out there hiding it.
Well, we don't know when this is all going to happen, so you want a safe place to put it. Maybe put 90% of it there, where in case somebody was to search your home, whether they were a criminal or legitimate law enforcement violating the Constitution, you want it in a safe place that nobody's going to look, that no one will think of, that if they did scan a metal detector, it's not really going to matter because there's metal in most of your walls, at least in new homes, in copper piping. So you want it somewhere where it's hidden well, 90% of it, maybe have 10% of it hidden somewhere else or in a safe, or like what I like to use is, I call it distractionary gold. If somebody came into my house, I do have some silver actually in gold, not hidden well on purpose. That way they see that and think that's my stash.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us, because that was the main question that I've been thinking about all week to ask you, because other people are making similar suggestions, and I'm saying, well, that's all well and good, but I want something that I could negotiate, something negotiable. And so where do I keep it so that I can reach it whenever I need it?
Well, a safe is probably reasonable. You could also hide it in all kinds of little spots. You can take coins and put them under the carpet matting. You could think creatively where you can get this easy access. If you feel really comfortable at your house, you can just hide it in a drawer, but that just depends on your comfort level and where you live.
Okay. Co-host, what do you think?
No, it's all very interesting, and I'm taking it all in. I guess one of my concerns is if I did have physical gold, how do I chop off a little piece to make it a negotiable instrument? If I have, let's say, an ingot, how do I, kind of parcel that out so that it is like a dollar bill instead of $100 bill,
You know what, to be honest with you, I don't know, but I know that just like in any other time, we would learn really fast if we had to trade gold like that. So, I'm not sure. Obviously, for centuries, people did it that way. I think it'd probably take us 5 minutes to figure out, but I don't know if you'd have to melt it or if gold's soft enough to cut it. I'm not a physical metal expert as far as the metal itself. But I'm not overly concerned about that, because when it comes time to trade gold for ammunition or for gasoline or for something, if we're in a barter situation where we've lost pretty much government utilities and infrastructure for a short time, I think people would figure it out really fast.
Now, didn't the same thing happen in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, Zimbabwe, of course, was never an industrialized nation. They were always third world, but once their currency collapsed, they started printing billions. I think the Zimbabwe dollars, it's been about 3 months since I checked, but it's 25 billion to $1 last I checked, and actually, believe it or not, 15 years ago they were 1 to 1. So that's kind of a scary thought there, how bad things can change, but. These Zimbabwe dollars are so worthless. They're only doing transactions over there in gold, And people, it's just like in Southern California. We could technically find gold in Southern California if we started mining it and people were in the rivers panning. But right now it's just flakes. Well, right now over in Zimbabwe, little grams of gold can get you bread and food.
Well, I know you met on California, and I think seeing my urban guy has a question for you regarding California.
Yeah. Daniel, I read this morning that the unemployment rate is so high in California, at around 12-13%.
Yeah, it's actually 12.2%, I believe, and it's an all-time record since they've been keeping track of unemployment in California. Now, Shadow Stats also keeps track of California, and they include the underemployed, which are people forced to part-time. They also include the discouraged workers, which haven't filed for unemployment in 4 weeks because they simply can't find a job, and people who've extended their benefits. When you include those people, California is at 21%. Now, California is being hit really, really hard because they are a consumer economy. The country's 70% consumer economy. California's GDP is 81% consumer economy. So California's taking it really hard. After Michigan and Indiana, California is right down there with Arizona. California and Arizona are suffering big time, and California has absolutely already entered in probably the second stage of the Depression, where most Californians know things are bad and they can't find jobs. It's crazy over here. I know people in my own family, in my life, in my circle of friends who've been out of work for longer than 9-10 months. And I know people who've been put to part-time hours. My own father, he's worked for a company for 35 years. He's actually in manufacturing. And his job, the most layoffs they've ever done in a recession is 2. They just finished their 4th round of layoffs. They said the next round of layoffs is it. After that, the company's not going to make it.
Oh my God. Oh, dear.
It's really ugly here in California.
Yeah, we were told last week by our guest that, everything starts in California and then it moves east. So, is that what we have to face here? Why is it that the politicians are telling us that things are looking up, the recession is over, things are great, blue skies everywhere? What's going on?
Well, politicians, of course, they're worried about re-election in 2010. They need to keep you cheered up just for another year and a half, but it's not even going to come close to making it to the next election. But the politicians, of course, they're also, a lot of people think these politicians are really, really smart. And I'm not trying to diss them as individuals, but most of them don't know economics. If you see, even the financial board for Congress, it's just pretty much Ron Paul by himself. Even Barney Franks, they don't know that much about economics. So when the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Federal Reserve come out and tells them, hey, unemployment's at 9% or things are going to improve, they kind of run with it because they don't know. They simply don't know. It's amazing. I often talk to people. Often refer to doctors and attorneys. That's kind of the the smart people in our society or our friends or whatever. And I'm surprised how many doctors and attorneys that I talk to that they don't have a clue about stocks. They don't have a clue about the real estate market or business or anything. And not to say these guys aren't brilliant. They help fix people. They help defend people or prosecute people. They went to school for a long time, but they didn't go to school in economics. So these politicians, especially, they just don't know economics. They know re-election, and that's about it.
Well, that's quite well taken because I think I mentioned to you that for 30 years I was in municipal finance, and what you say is absolutely correct. I don't want to demean my colleagues or either, but they just don't know what how the operation is run. But really, when you come right down to it, the public itself really doesn't understand how the system is run. So that's the reason why we're having so much problem. Let me give you an example. I've had the people that I work with who've gone on television, these are elected officials, telling the public, they look straight at the TV camera, they say, the nice thing about this program, folks, it doesn't cost the taxpayers a cent because the federal government pays for it, or the state pays for it. And the people say, well, that's great. In other words, they're not using my hard-earned real property tax payments that I make to the municipality, they're using free money because if it comes from Washington or from the state capital, it's quote, free, unquote.
Yeah, it is comical to us listening to that because the federal government is the taxpayer. That's the taxpayer's fund. So the money's not separate. But yeah, I've heard that too, where people are debating on CNBC and they say, well, no, the taxpayers won't be affected by this. The federal government's going to take care of it. That's ridiculous.
Well, can I share this with you, Daniel? I think it all started back in somewhere 1944. 42, 44, there was this Wall Street banker. His last name was I forgot his first name, Alexander or Frederick or something. Anyway, it was his suggestion, which I think he was speaking for the politicians, is to come out with a federal withholding tax payment. And you're too young to remember it, but a lot of the CEOs at that time refused to do that because they say it was unconstitutional, un-American. But the National Guard went in and physically carry them out of their offices in these plants. I say you got to do it whether you like it or not. Since that time, now the reason I'm mentioning this is that if the people have to pay their federal income tax obligation every year in April at the full amount, all this would stop.
Would you say the last part, if people had to pay their income tax?
I would think that all of this, see, the reason why they say they can get away with this is because the money is taken out of their paychecks before the taxpayer has a chance to take a look at it. So the taxpayer, he or she, never misses what they don't have.
Correct.
They go straight to Washington.
Yeah, and they have no clue when they go to do their taxes. They have no clue. All they know is they pay the guy $150. And they either get a tax refund or they don't. But yeah, people have no idea. They have no clue what they put in for taxes, unless you own a small business.
Yeah, bingo, you got it. So that's the problem we're facing here. So the American people, you don't have to say it, but I'm going to say it because I think that they've got to wake up one of these days. And why aren't the community leaders doing something about this? Because the people who are in the know, why aren't they coming out and telling us what's happening? Well, you are. But I mean, there's a lot of other people involved too. Why aren't they doing it?
Well, they have to be careful because we're on the fringe of being conspiracy nuts. You've got the extreme Alex Jones, and then you've got Peter Schiff on the other end. You have to remember guys like Peter Schiff who are also telling the truth. He also has, probably thousands of investors who don't know what we know and might be scared if Peter Schiff started talking about a private Federal Reserve Bank or rioting in the streets, even though Peter Schiff does put in the back of his original book, Crash Proof, that he thought one of the scenarios would be civil unrest. But he doesn't ever. I've never heard him talk about it on a CNBC show or Fox News, and it's not because he doesn't believe it, because he doesn't want to scare people or discredit himself almost to the mainstream. So Peter Schiff, to explain it, and Ron Paul are kind of like the milk that kind of wakes people up and kind of strengthens them. And then people on, like your show, are kind of the show that gives people the red meat, the reality, the hard news, the reality of the situation on how bad things are going to get. So, especially Ron Paul. I mean, let's remember, Ron Paul may be an incumbent, but roughly 90% of his constituents are not, they're probably not libertarians. They probably are Republicans. And if he started talking about let's say something like 9/11, like reinvestigating 9/11, or if Ron Paul started talking about, just something more extreme. I'm trying to think. Maybe use civil unrest, for example. He might lose a lot of those voters, and that would actually be counterproductive to our movement. Ron Paul and Peter Schiff serve a role, wake them up, and then different people like me, I served a different role. After they're woken up, I try to give them more information, and then people like you, and there's a lot of others out there who serve an even greater role, which is they finally prepare them for what's to come.
Okay, I see there's a call. Are you willing to answer a call?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Okay, caller, you got a question for her, or you want to make a comment with Daniel?
Yes, I do. Name's Dave here. Daniel, I've been following your work for over a year now. And
And thank you very much. It's opened my eyes, and it's got me to study our problems a little more carefully.